And welcome, everybody. It is Friday, August 23rd, the last day of the week. Okay, so we'll see what everything looks like today after yesterday's sell off. The QQQ sold off yesterday almost 1.6%, and the Dow went down 0.5% almost, SPY 0.78%. And everybody's like, oh no, things are collapsing again. But no, it's just doing what it's supposed to be doing. And essentially, I'm gonna take a look at the QQQ first, and we'll see what exactly is going on. And we'll see that here, pre-market, it's back up $4. So what happened yesterday? If you just look at something on the moving averages only, all that happened was price broke above the 50-day moving average, then went back to retest it, and essentially that's it for the QQQ. And now it's recovering, right? So not really anything scary at all. Things do that all the time. They break out, then they back test, and then they continue higher, right? But again, we need to understand that it still is approaching a resistance zone for the QQQ. And that resistance zone is still going to be up here in the 480s, right? Maybe 488, like I mentioned yesterday, could be a possibility. But it's still within that resistance zone until it's ready to break out. It might be just stuck in a range. So despite today's positive price action, it still is probably just going to be stuck in a range until more time is needed to break out. Greetings. Do you think you get a retest of FET? Yeah, we can check out crypto, but I'm just going to talk about the indices real quick. And next is the SPY, and the SPY has already been above the cloud, right? And basically that was already approaching resistance. So it was kind of obvious that since it was up here yesterday, it already closed this gap yesterday. It was probably going to go down because it was very near the all-time highs. And whenever that happens, this is a normal situation that price wanted to go down. So that's what we saw yesterday. But today it's up 3 points, 3.6 right now. But again, it's approaching that resistance zone again. So again, I'm not going to be too excited about breaking this resistance because I don't think it's going to happen this week. And today is the weekly candle close. So just more ranging for today, possibly down towards the cloud as well. Could go down again, right? Or possibly up a little bit. So just nothing is changed from yesterday. As you can see clearly with this picture, nothing has changed. It's still above the cloud. It's still in a range. It's still even above last week's low, right? So just in a range, no different. And IWM daily chart told the story too. It broke out above the baseline here, and it's been holding it as support. And you can see it basically went up here yesterday, and it kind of closed out all this wick up here, closed that gap a lot, and essentially it just went back down to retest support and almost made it there, but it did not do it exactly. And now you see it up 1.69 in the pre-market, and that is back where it kind of was yesterday, right? So again, still in a range, but still on the daily chart above the cloud, and it's still bullish, right? So again, no damage was done whatsoever to this chart. So of course, things are just ranging from what they were doing yesterday. So there's really no difference of any chart that I just pulled up, the QQQ, SPY, IWM. They're all just still in that range and doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. So despite any fear about yesterday's sell-off, it's just normal, right? Things approaching some resistance area, and so they sell off. And if, especially with the IWM here, you can just essentially draw a line right here, right? And you can see that essentially, not here, sorry, up here where the wick was, you can see that it was a previous support, and it went up to test it as a resistance, right? That's all it did. And if it can't break a resistance, it'll go back and retest support. So that's exactly what IWM did, right? Just to put things in perspective for you guys right there. And yeah, so let me just go over Tesla first before the crypto. And Tesla daily chart, What what we really see with Tesla is that it was getting back above the cloud, but then it started to lose like one support level at a time throughout the day. And when that happens, it triggers like more stop losses and stuff like that. And then it went back down to around where the baseline sits, right around there. So, or sorry, the conversion line, right around there, around 211. But it closed a little bit below. But I think the real telling story with Tesla is always the weekly chart here. And the weekly chart really told us that it went up to the resistance. It went exactly wicked through the conversion line up here at 226 and the top of the cloud. But that was kind of enough, right? That was really enough. And it couldn't carry the steam to break ahead, right? So essentially, if it can't break resistance, it'll go back and test support. And so it kept on going down because of the daily chart, kept on losing one support after the next. But essentially, on the weekly chart, is right here at the 50-week moving average, and that's at 208.41, and it still didn't even go back there to touch it. So essentially, what you see is a breakout of these moving averages above all this resistance. You got the baseline, the 100 and the 50 there. It just broke out, continued higher, and now it's back testing it. So is today going to continue higher? Maybe not, right? Maybe it'll actually go lower today. Like, so when the market opens, there's a possibility to get down to the 208s, maybe even the 207 or 206, right? Because it couldn't break above the resistance, so it's going to go retest support. But if you remember from last week, I really mentioned that the Ichimoku was telling the story, and all I cared about was closing above that 204.90. And essentially, that is the most important level, right? Because it broke out above that, because it has been support for a while. It did lose that support for 1 week, but now it's back above. So essentially, that's all that really matters still for a bullish continuation is closing above that 204.90. So nothing else really matters to me still, even though I wanted it to see a close above this 221, but that might not happen because of the loss of resistance, loss of support, I should say, yesterday. So this chart is still bullish. It's still breaking a level and maybe a successful back test for a continuation higher. And that's all it's doing in my eyes. And NVIDIA, weekly chart basically is having like a little bit of a big wick up top, but that's not a surprise either. I was telling you guys that it's getting towards a resistance up here, right? Around the 130s, right? You can see the previous candles here, resistance there. So if we go to the daily chart, you can see that that resistance was clear with the top of the cloud and it could not really break above it. And that was clear because of the close yesterday below. So despite today's action, that's still the resistance zone, 128, 127. That's going to be it. And price still could go lower to go back to the 118 down here to retest that level, or even down to the bottom of the cloud to the 115s again. That is also a possibility. So despite the pre-market positive action, I still think prices could continue to go back down and retest levels because there still is this resistance above. So we'll see if it can break through this resistance or not. But just to let you guys know, it is closer to resistance than it is support. So I'm always more cautious at resistance. And yeah, now I'll take a look at Fetch AI because that was the first request. And Fetch AI, do you think we get a retest on 97? I think that's a possibility for Fetch AI, but actually, let me go to my log scale chart for Fetch AI because I like that one a little bit more. Let's see here. Where is my Fetch AI? I'm losing my eyes. There it is. Um, yeah, so essentially my log scale chart is telling the story here that it broke out above the 97 and then it even started to break out daily candles above the baseline. And I told my Patreon people that because it opened a new candle above it, I think it's going to go up towards the 1.07, and I think that's going to be the target. But as far as going back down to the 97, I'm not sure anymore, right? Because it just cleanly broke through it and then got above the baseline. So I can see a back test to maybe 101 right now, but not sure if it'll go back to the 97. It's not too much of a difference anyway, so it is possible. But The formation of this is clear that it had a bottom here. This was the bottoming process. Then it got back one level at a time. And now it's getting towards this big resistance level where it hasn't touched that level since back in July, right? So there's a possibility of coming back down to the 50-day moving average to hit that 107 and then maybe reject a little bit. So just a little bit of caution near this resistance level too, but had a great recovery and so on. So I think the possibility to continue is there after this resistance, right? Let's see. Good morning, DAG. Short-term and long-term targets. Thank you. Yeah, I can just go over DAG real quick. So DAG is also trying to battle that conversion line. It's got resistance at 253 daily chart. Weekly chart, it's bearish, right? It's trying to battle. It's trying to battle this previous support. Then it flipped it to a resistance. So waiting on more weekly candles to close above these levels and then build it back as a base. And if it can start to build this 0.235 as a base again, then there's a chance to get up to the 3. But essentially, there's massive resistance above. So I don't really see any kind of great things happening until it's on the top side of this cloud in the future, whenever that's going to be. Not sure when that's going to be, but can't really give any long-term targets until this is a bullish chart again. So currently, it's not. It lost a lot of market structure. It made lower lows from here. So that is the first clue that it's a bearish chart. It lost the previous support. And eventually, it'll get back to this arc whenever that'll be, and then flip one level at a time. But it's going to be a slow process, and we'll see what happens with that. But at least this angle held as support. That's what really is important. And if that continues to hold as support, then I think it can slowly but surely recover and continue higher. And essentially, the biggest thing with this chart is right here. If you draw a line there, you can see that it was a level right here, a back test, right? A resistance, 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 breakout, flipping it to support. So high time frame, it's bullish, right? The lower time frames, it's in a downtrend and it's bearish, right? So essentially, you can look at it like that, and eventually it'll recover and get through all that resistance. But not sure if that'll be anytime soon because a lot of damage has been done. Let's see here. Our favorite Tesla, where is the support for CLSK? CLSK, let's go to CLSK up here. So yeah, just using this chart alone, my ultimate target really is eventually it's going to touch this 45-degree angle. And where in time is that going to be? I'm not too sure. Is it going to be next week where it's down at like $8? Or is it going to be in February of 2025 where it's at $10, right? Not too sure. But based off of this market symmetry, you can see that this blue level is important. And it was a resistance, flipped it to a support, and now it's a resistance again. So essentially 1360 is the resistance for the longer term. And the true support, in my eyes, is going to be down here around the $8 all the way up to maybe 9 or 10 or around where these candles were, depending on time. So that is the real support in my eyes for CLSK. But when you add on the Ichimoku here, you can see that it's clearly underneath everything as well, right? It's under the cloud, under all the indicators. So then you can put on the SMA, and the hope there is it maintains above that 200 average, right? Because if it maintains above that, then it won't go back down and test it anytime soon. It'll probably maybe in the future test it later on. Who knows? But that's the line in the sand. So 1086 is what I need to see CLSK close weekly candles above for possible continuation higher, because that 200-week average is very important. And Beam, we'll take a look at Beam. Beam Therapeutics. So let's just take a look at this market symmetry first for Beam. So yeah, it broke out all the way to the blue level, then back down to the orange, then to flip the orange to a resistance right here. And now where does price sit? Well, it sits right at that arc and it's battling it week after week after week. So it broke out above, can't break above now, can't break above, can't break above. So it's stuck. It's stuck under that arc. And that is essentially maybe 2480. And next week it'll be around maybe 2460 or so. So weekly candles need to start closing above that before there's any kind of progress on this chart. Otherwise, it's going to just trend down as resistance. So we'll see if it can break above. And do we have any weekly indicators that give us that for the Ichimoku? No, nothing is bullish there. Any SMAs down there? No. So essentially, what I got to work with is right here. I need to see weekly candles close above this, currently above 2480 or 90. And then if that is the case, then they can build a base on top of it to try to continue higher for beam. SKL, Skillcast Group. Is this London? Yeah. Is this the one that you wanted? Yeah. I don't have a GAN for this, so I'll have to do it another time. But essentially, it's bullish, right? It's bullish, but it's also at resistance. You don't even need a GAN for this. You can just look. It was here in November of 21, and it's at that price now, right? It's in a big resistance zone. You can see that with this candle, this candle, this candle. You don't even need to see anything else. This is at a resistance and maybe needs to cool down a little bit before it can break through. And let's look at IREN. And IREN here is, yeah, it's just on GAN market symmetry. It broke out to the blue level, back tested the arc. So that's a positive thing. When you put on the Ichimoku here, you can see it also was the same level as the top of the cloud. And now it's just stuck underneath some resistance up here in the 9s and the 10s. And if you go down to the SMAs, you can see that also it held the 50 as support too. So there was a lot of confluence in this zone with the ARC, with the cloud, with the 50 MA that price wanted to hold and continue higher. And I think that's what it's doing. So essentially, if you just look at it, it's just stuck in the middle of a range. So which direction is it going to go? Well, it might continue a little bit lower first before higher, just simply because it already kind of went up here to retest this red candle right here. It came up there to retest it twice, right, with this week and this week. So that's proven to be a little bit of a challenge. So it might get stuck there and then consolidate a little more before it's ready to push higher. So I think it's closer to a little resistance here. And also you can see with this wick right here on this candle, it's kind of the same level as this wick as well. And again, just draw a line right there. Take everything else off. You can see it's a resistance here, a resistance here. Tried to flip it to support here. It's back as resistance. So just by using this alone, you can see it's closer to resistance than it is support. So possibly it might go back up, but then roll over and find a new higher low somewhere. Let's see here. I see a request for HIMS. HIMS and Hers Health. And this one is doing exactly what I've been thinking it's going to be doing, still holding that angle as support. And this is also ultimately what I just look at for HIMS. I've been just using this alone, not really with anything else, simply because it's following this angle very perfectly, right? Perfect symmetry with a resistance here, flipping to a support here, and now it's still support. So essentially, I think price can continue up towards the arc around the 17s, maybe 18s, and then possibly just maintain this angle through that, right? So if it just maintains this angle through, then maybe it'll get to the top side of the arc possibly in November or December or so. And that'll be in the 20s and try to battle that stuff. But if it ever did lose this arc as a support, then that would just be more time before price can break above to the 19. So just watching this really carefully to see if it will break or not. We need Tesla chart. I just showed a Tesla chart in the morning, and NVIDIA, hey, Beam and Scout, good morning. Requests need to be more specific. Oh, you meant Beam Crypto. Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, because there are a lot of different beams out there in the world, right? Let's see, Beam. We'll do Beam. Which one do we want? Bybit. We'll do UMXC maybe. Yeah, that's a better chart. So Beam USDT, essentially what I'm looking at is just a bottoming process, right? Down here, this, like, you can just draw a box in this zone, right? You can just see that's in a big demand zone down there with all these candles. So essentially, you don't really need anything else. It's trying to find a base, right? And is it at resistance? Yeah, like it's battling a weekly candle with that conversion line at 0.035 for Beam. And essentially, let's see, that's Sunday at 8 p.m. That's a weekly candle close. If it can close above it, then that'll be an opportunity to continue higher. If it can't, then that'll be more challenges to break through. So that's really what you're looking at, is a weekly candle close above that number there. And currently it's above, so it's good. But just got to wait maybe 2 days and 11 hours more to see. SKL USD Binance. And this one, weekly chart. Yeah, it's also losing some support here. It did make a lower low from these levels here, and now it's looking like it could be back to a resistance. Let's just draw a line right there. Let's see. Right here, it was a support here. It was a support, and it was a support here. So it looks like it is kind of like currently a previous support flipping to a resistance for SKL. So kind of need to see weekly candles close back above it and regain that support.